Leadership is about people. You lead people. Management is about processes. You manage processes. It is people that are carrying out the processes. If you try and manage people, you're going to fail.
I also think that a good leader, especially as a business owner, they should be trying to lead them, teach them, grow them, all their employees, into the point where they could end up leaving you for a better opportunity. Hey everybody, welcome to the FIP Printing Pros podcast. I'm your host, Josh Dynaston, and with me, my co-host, Chris Lockwood. And today what we're going to be talking about is the difference between leadership and management in your company, and kind of differences that how we could help you implement the different ways to change maybe what you're already doing in your company. And to start off, how would you, just in a quick, explanation, how would you describe the difference between
So I Googled it.
leadership and management?
The Army's definition for leadership is the process of influencing others to accomplish a mission while leaving the organization better than you found it. Right? Something along those lines. But here's what Google says, the AI overview. Leadership and management, while often used interchangeably, are distinct concepts. Leadership focuses on inspiring and motivating individuals towards a common goal or vision, while maintaining focus on organizing and executing tasks to achieve specific objectives. Leaders are more concerned with setting direction. While management focuses on organizing and executing tasks to achieve a specific objective. Leaders are more concerned with setting direction and creating a positive culture, while managers are responsible for planning, originating, and controlling resources. And then it goes on more and more and more into other kind of stuff. So, in essence, here's how it was described to me, and this is what I've always subscribed to. Leadership is about people. You lead people. Management is about processes. You manage processes. So while it is people that are carrying out the processes, if you try and manage people, you're going to fail. Either you're going to be miserable, they're going to be miserable. Can you get things done through management? Yeah, absolutely. Look at the retail industry.
Yeah.
It's full of managers, right? But they're also full of people who hate their job and don't develop beyond, putting candles on the shelf.
Yep.
Until they go to a different role. So, you'll have processes in place, but people that are inspired by leaders will execute those processes far greater than people that are micromanaged by managers to do the same task.
Yeah, exactly. I also think that a good leader, especially as a business owner, their role should be, God forbid, you don't want to lose employees by any means, but also they should be trying to lead them, teach them, grow them, all their employees, into the point where they could end up leaving you for a better opportunity, And that is always not something you necessarily want, but also at the end of the day, that is what you want. And for me, how I want my business to be looked at from all the employee side of things is I want them to have that ownership mindset.
Yeah.
And if I'm just managing them, they're going to feel like they're always just a worker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for me, that's not how I want it to be. Sorry, my voice is messing up today. But what I want is basically I want them to think of the customer. You talk for a second.
Yeah. So I think where you're going with this is you want them to have ownership in the process. You want them to see that their position is valuable to the success of the company. And the only way to do that is to grow into that role and be able to develop it. Now, I will also say this before we get too far away from that particular point. There are workers out there.
Yes.
There are people out there that are perfectly happy to clock in at 9, build their widget, clock out at 5, and go home.
Yep.
They want nothing more, nothing less. They don't want to. They don't want to move from that position, and that's okay. As a leader, you have to recognize that. Now, does that mean you treat them as just a cog in the wheel? Absolutely not, because you still have influence over that person's happiness. You have influence over their job satisfaction, not happiness. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. You have influence over their job satisfaction. So even if they are one of those people that I just want to come in, I just want to do my job, I just want to come home, that's fine. What can we do in order to make sure when you go home, your life is better when you go home? Because I can still teach, I can still train, I can still do those things, I can still influence, because whatever that worker's doing is important. Now, for the ones that don't fit into that mold, you're absolutely right. I want you to own your role. I want you to have the freedom to improve on the process that's already in place. Because as a business owner or as a manager who creates a process, does that mean my process is the best way to do things? No, absolutely not. If you can find a better way to do it, I want you to do that. But you have to have that freedom to know that you can make, at least make those suggestions to make the changes, right?
Yep.
And that's where leadership comes in for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, the guy or the girl that just wants to do 9 to 5 and do work, honestly, they're not bad people to have in your company because, I mean, if they were like working super slow during that 9 to 5 or whatever, that's another story. But if they're a worker bee, those are great people to have in the company, especially like in certain positions because, say like for ours, we have production, and if we just have somebody there that just knocks work out left and right, like that's not a bad thing to have. I don't need them to necessarily want more for I mean, not that I don't want them to want more for their life, but if they don't want that, I mean, that's nothing wrong with me. And I guess as long as they're getting this stuff done properly, that's all that matters to me ultimately, that things are getting done. But where I still want them to keep in mind, though, even though they don't maybe have higher aspirations or just wanting to be a better, trying to improve themselves in any kind of way, I still want them to think from the ownership mindset still, because I want them to think, I want to do this quality, properly, all those things, because at the end of the day, what I always try to tell my people is that just remember, the customer ultimately is what pays your salary, not me. Like, I am not the one. Technically, yes, am I the one writing the check? I mean, I'm technically not because it's all digital nowadays. but
I'm the one that approves. I click the approve.
I click the buttons. Yeah, technically, is it coming from me? Sure, yes. But ultimately, it's our customers paying their paycheck.
Yeah.
So you need to have the mindset of, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure they're happy so I keep getting paid. And hopefully you do such a good job that the company is doing so well because we're growing ourselves, we're doing such a good job, get a good reputation, and then I can now give raises. I can do bonuses. I can do all the things. So if you don't have that mindset of trying to get to that point and accomplish it, and you're just, everybody is worker bees, or you're just a straight worker bee and the quality doesn't matter, things like that, that's when you lose customers. Now I can't pay you as much. I may have to lay people off, whatever that looks like. So that's where, as a leader, like I'm trying to make sure that the team is on the same page in that mindset of having that ownership mindset. You may not be the owner, but I want you to think like an owner. And what would if I was the owner, how would I want this to happen for the company?
Yeah. And I think back, so I got over 25 years of experience with leadership and that kind of stuff. And one of the things I noticed when I left the military and I came out into the quote unquote real world or the civilian world, there's not a lot of training available on leadership. I think there's a lot of people in management positions that fancy themselves a leader, but really don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there that get the title of manager, and they have people that work for them, and they use that, or they take it as a position of authority, which it is, but they don't understand the responsibility that they have to those people that are under them, their subordinates. And I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint as a business owner who was in the military, you were in law enforcement, so I know law enforcement gets leadership training as well because you deal with the public, and a lot of it's about communication and networking and making connections and those kind of things. So what do you see as kind of the big mistakes that you see, not just the owners, because, I mean, there's people that start a business that are owners. That doesn't mean you know shit about leadership either.
Yeah.
Just because you're in a position doesn't mean you use it the way you're supposed to. But what are some of the mistakes you've seen, quote unquote, leaders make that don't have the military training, that don't have that constant training? What are some of the common ones you see?
That's a tough one. I would even say, even with my military background and police background, like coming into a ownership position is a totally different type of leadership. Because you can, like from a military standpoint or police standpoint, like you have people you're looking over, like as far as like in a different way, like you want to make sure these people don't die. You're training them, like, how to, protect themselves, protect others, things like that. Now it's like a different type of role. Now you're like, I need to protect these people so they can provide for their family. It's a type of different leadership, because I guess from where I came from, it was more of a like, how do we keep each other alive, keep other people alive, and do our job as far as best of our abilities. Now it's, how do I make sure that these people are taken care of? Like, I still had that mindset even in leadership in the military, because I got up to a little higher where I was like a team leader and things like that. I mean, you got up to first sergeant, so I mean, you were up the top of the food chain on the enlistment side.
There was still somebody above me that could kick
Well,
you
yeah.
off.
You didn't want to be a command sergeant major.
There's always someone above you that can kick you down, that's for sure.
But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like it's just different, because I think in life, finances are such a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to take on as a business owner, and the stress of like making sure you're taking care of people, that they can take care of their own people. You know?
Yeah. So that is trying to think about that. You have to make sure the business is operating, right? Which that's where the processes are
Yep.
come into play. That's where managing those processes are important. But you also have to lead the people that do those processes.
Yep.
And one of the things that I see is there's sometimes, I don't mean this in a that it's not important, but there's too much emphasis put on the processes, because that's easy.
Yeah.
The truth is, it's easy to be a manager
Yeah.
if you have the processes.
Yep.
Because all I got to do is say, did you do A? Did you do B? You didn't do C, so there's the problem.
Yep.
You need to do A, B, and C.
Yep.
Whereas with leadership, not only did you do A, B, and C, but also I have to be like, taking care of you at the same time. I didn't have to worry about that in the Army with are they getting a paycheck? I had to worry about how are you spending your paycheck, because when you start paying people and they start doing dumb things, teaching them how to budget. Like, you would never teach an employee how to do a personal budget.
I mean, I have.
You can if they ask, but you know what I mean? Like, that's not something that's like.
That's not normal. Yeah.
Okay, let's do your monthly review.
Oh, yeah.
I just got a letter that says you're not paying your bill. Like, that's not going to happen.
See, I'm a
right?
weird person. I love like somebody. Not that I love that somebody has a budget problem, but meaning like if somebody has a budget problem, I geek out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I want to. Okay, how much do you make? What's your bills? What could be cut out? Teaching them discipline on managing their money properly and not overspending on things that they love to spend on, and that's what's screwing them over in the end. So I love leading people in that direction too. So that's a weird thing I do on the side that people like come to me with their those type of issues. But anyways, but as far as the leadership as a business owner, one thing I think that honestly being a police officer did help me. Military, not so much, because I feel like military is more tough, like on you, like where it's like if somebody's got a problem, well, suck it up,
I think it depends on the leader. You didn't have good
well,
leaders.
it does depend. I mean, and honestly, I mean, I haven't been in the military for a while, but I'm pretty sure it's a little different than when I was in.
Yeah.
It was still, at least when I was still in, it was still very like, suck it up, rub some dirt in it, drink some water, drive on, type
Take
thing.
a Motrin.
Yeah, exactly. 800 milligram ibuprofen. But as far as when I became a police officer, I'm dealing with people in their worst moments, and having to try to calm that situation down, resolve it, and be a counselor for them as well. Like, I don't think people realize how much a police officer wears so many different hats. They're a lawyer. They're a fighter. They're a firefighter. They're a counselor. They're a paramedic. I mean,
referee.
Yeah, it's literally there's so many different hats. You're a social worker. You're like there's so many different things that you're wearing a hat on that it did help me to become really well rounded in that regard. And then when I think now coming into the business ownership side, what has helped me, my first business, I didn't have to do it as much because I had one employee.
Makes it a lot easier, right? Well, in some sense easier, in some sense harder. So,
yeah, it made it a lot easier as far as like, there's not like a lot of conflict I had to resolve between other people not liking each other or whatever the case may be, or just somebody not liking the way somebody does a certain thing, whatever it is. But now coming into, a business that, had 10 plus employees, that there's a little more, now you have to kind of be more cognizant of people's, maybe not, and how they mesh. Mm-hmm. Also, just how you want the business to be ran. I've talked about this in the other one, but, I've had some people where, they more so when something gets messed up, there'd be yelling involved. I don't like that. Like, that's not the way I want things resolved. I want let's talk about this. Let's fix this. It doesn't need to be yelling involved. And I don't really have that anymore. But there's still times when people they don't like the way that person does it because they think it needs to be done a different way, and it frustrates them or something like that. And you talk them down or whatever. It's a lot of more so just honestly being a leader in the aspect of just being a human being, and caring about the people, and understanding that, they've also got personal lives going on and they've got stresses going on in their own personal life. Right now we have several different people in our company that there's been deaths and or serious health issues within family members or themselves, and have to navigate those things, have some care and understanding of that, this is real life. Like, you can't just be like, nope, got to get to work. Sorry, you can't. Yeah. You can't have these emotions and
leave your emotions at the door when you clock in.
Yeah, or you can't take time off because somebody passed away. No, you're gonna have to be real about that. And that a true leader, and honestly, there's companies though that don't care. They truly just no, sorry, you have a job. I expect you to be there at 9 a.m.
I've seen the videos online, and they always make me laugh. And it's like, I need you to come in. So and so didn't, they couldn't come in because of their cat's sick. I'm on vacation. Well, I understand that, but I still need you to come in. I'm in Mexico. Well, I'm going to need you to be here tomorrow. You're not going to have a job. It's like, Are you even listening to the words?
Yeah.
That's a manager.
Yeah.
That's a manager that is married to
The process.
the process.
Yep.
And I'm not saying the process is bad because it's very important. You can be both a manager and a leader at the same time. Matter of fact, that's what you should be.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you know, sometimes they can't think, or they don't even hear, it seems like, the human side of it.
Yep.
And that's kind of disappointing. And that's one of the things I noticed when I came out into the civilian world, that as I talk to people, you know, I'll ask them, you know, have you ever had any kind of leadership training or anything like that? Like, no. I didn't even know it was a thing. And I'm like, holy crap, I had it like weekly. Like it was like every week you had sergeant's time, and that's what you were doing. So it was kind of eye-opening for me, I think.
I think also it plays a factor in your employee retention too, because if somebody just feels like they're a number to you and that's all they are, like, why would they care about, like, you know, I think we had, it was Andres. He was on here with Media Minds. He was on here and we were talking about, you know, how, you would never have an employee not take a paycheck. And he's like, actually, he's had people that's taken, you know, not getting paid for a while because they believed in him. The way, I'm sure, I mean, I didn't have that conversation in depth, but I also can tell the way he treats his people, like they're like family to him and things like that. And people will do whatever they can to, you know, stay with you if you treat them well. Whereas if you're just, nope, clock in, clock out. Hey, did you get this done? Did you get that? Never have like legitimate conversations with them, like, and, you know, about life or anything like that along the way, and don't connect with them. They're never gonna, you know, they don't have that, not the word connection, but like loyalty to you, because why would they be loyal to you when clearly you're just treating them as a number? You're not loyal to them, you know?
Well, and, you know, you got to be genuine about that too. You can't just, you know, you can't have them fill out a questionnaire when they get the job. What's your favorite color? What do you like to do for fun? You know, how many kids do you have? Like, it can't just be you know, I'm going to ask you these questions, and then I'm not going to, like, it's not going to be a thing in a week. You know, you have to genuinely care. Now, does that mean that I'm going to be all up in your business and I'm going to be like, you know, interrogating you about things that are going? No, that's not what it is. What you're trying to get at, and I'll give some tips here shortly about, you know, how to be an effective manager, how to be an effective leader. These tips are not going to make you that. This is just where you start looking, because it takes years, literally years, to become a good leader. It takes even longer to become a great leader. A lot of times. Doesn't mean, you know, I don't, you know, there's always that whole thing of, you know, are you born a leader? Are you taught to be a leader? I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yep.
You're born a leader, and you're taught to be a leader.
Yep.
You know, some people, it comes more natural, but I think we all have it in us, and we can all learn. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with that point. But, you know, you can't just have the little checklist when you do in processing and or onboarding and make it, and that's your leadership. That's not leadership. That's just having something to put in a file. You got to genuinely care about your people. Now, just because I care about you, does that mean I will not hold you accountable?
Yeah, that's
for your job? That's part of leadership, but it's how you do it. You mentioned you don't yell. I don't yell either, but there are times when you have to, right? There's times in you know, life and death situations, or there's serious harm, or, you know, things like that.
When I was a police officer.
When you're a police officer, like you got to get someone's attention.
Yeah.
But conflict resolution, it never helps unless you are trying to break a pattern. And what I mean by that, if you got two employees that are bickering, oh, you said, he said, she said, there's going to be a voice raised, and if you're going to be like,
I've had to do that.
whoa, what just happened? Okay, now let's bring it back down. But you know, again, you got to genuinely care about their well-being. You got to care about, you know, are they happy with their job? Yes, you're doing your job. You're doing a good job, but are you happy with it?
Yep.
Now, does that mean I can do everything that you want me to do to make you happy? No, because most of us will be happy just getting paid, not doing anything. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but understanding that, understanding how people work is very important to leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even I think sometimes maybe I'm probably a little too just like open with even with my employees. At least that's what my wife tells me. But because I mean, I've literally like they know pretty much almost everything about my personal life, and struggles and things like that I go through, even within the business. They don't know every extent, because also I'm not trying to scare them. If they would have known the struggles the last 2 years, they probably have been really scared. They probably would have found another job if they would have known how serious it got there at the end. But I mean, I've literally cried in front of my employees many times because of different situations that I've talked to them about, and I've cried with them about situations they're going through. So in some situations, it's okay, but sometimes I look back, I'm like, I'm way too open. Like
I think that comes down to, and that comes down to style, right? So there's many different styles of leadership.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to your style. Like your style has to fit both your personality and the situation.
Yeah.
One of the more popular things these days about leadership is servant leadership. There's a time and a place for servant leadership. So what servant leadership is, where I put the needs of my people before my own. I am there to make your job easier so that you can do your job. There's a time and a place for that. Transitional leadership is a completely different kind of leadership. It's a much harsh isn't the right word. It's a lot more forceful, because I'm trying to transform an organization from where it is now to where it needs to go. You have collective leadership to where or consensus. I can't remember if it's collective or consensus, but you take a collective consensus, and then you make a decision. So there's a lot of different leadership styles. There's a lot of different leadership techniques. It all depends on the situation. There's directive leadership.
Yeah.
That's used a lot in very dangerous situations. Like if you were walking through the shop and you saw something, a dangerous situation, right? You're going to give a directive. We're not taking a poll. We're not being nice about it. This is what's going to happen. This could cause an accident, so now we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So you make a decision. Then you put a new policy in place, and now that policy is going to be managed. So there's always, you have to adapt to the situation, and from time to time you have to adapt person to person too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your leadership style, your leadership style is much more open than mine would be. Right? You build confidence in your people by saying, hey, here it is. This is what's going on. This is where we're at. This is what we got to do. I'm here with you. We're doing it. We're whatever. My style would not be as open. I would take a different direction, but that doesn't mean you're right or I'm wrong, or I'm right or you're wrong.
Yep.
It's just, it has to fit the
Styles.
situation. It has to fit, your personality, like I said, and all that kind of stuff. So,
And that also, and again, this is my leadership style, but I also think a good true leader is one that can do this, is where in your business, no job is to below you.
100%.
And leading by example is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to get the respect from your people. And, again, we've talked about this on a couple podcasts where, me doing this stuff in the back, production-wise, and jumping in and doing things is not the most productive use of my time, because I could be doing so much better things to help grow the company. However, it is necessary for me to do it sometimes, and I have no problem jumping in and doing it. And that's also showing my people that, like, hey, I'm willing to jump in and do whatever to make this company successful. that's what I want you to do too.
Yeah.
Like whatever that looks like. I don't care if even it's small.
That
thing.
goes back to that ownership mentality you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
For them to own, to own it, yeah.
Yep. You know, you know, again, I'm very lucky for the staff that I've got. I don't really have anybody that if I need them to do something like jump in the back and help with something, nobody really questions it. And I know sometimes it stresses them out because sometimes they have a lot of things on their plate that they need to get done. But I'm like, hey, this is a priority though. I need you to go do this. And they're like, ooh, now it's going to back me up, you know, on what I normally do. But ultimately, it's what I'm telling them. But the company right now, this is what the priority is, and this is what we need you to do. And they're like, all right, well, let's do it, you know. And, you know, rarely do I get much backlash, at least I. But, you know, that's for me personally anyways. And I think that also is because I'm willing to go do that, you know. I'm willing to, like, if that's what the company needs, okay, I'm going to bounce back there. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go do all the very meticulous things that, you know, can be not necessarily what you would think an owner would be doing in a company, but
Stuffing envelopes and still, yep.
things like that. But if that's what it's got to do, we got to do to make sure that it gets out on the right time so the customer's happy. You know, I will do whatever, or staying late, whatever the case may be, overtime, whatever, all the different things. You know, also again, that's also leadership too, is trying to know your people. Like, as far as overtime made me think about that. Is, you know, I have some people that they don't really want to work overtime. So I try to do as best as I can to avoid having to make them work overtime if I can work around it. But I know people want it. So like if I can reward them and like for their hard work and say, hey, there's some extra overtime, you want it, and give it to them because we're doing well that month or whatever. I like to do that as well for them. You know,
Well, that comes from having those conversations and learning how your people tick. Like there's some people that love recognition. They love being in the spotlight. They love feeling important. And then there's other. Now we all need that in life. Anybody that says, "Oh, I don't want to be recognized," you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be recognized. Some of us just don't want to be on stage in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's a different recognition.
But we still want to be recognized for doing a good job. But it's how do I get recognized? Some people are like, hey, you've been busting your butt. I got some extra overtime. It's yours if you want it.
Yep.
Or some people are like, hey, you've been busting your butt. Why don't you take off an hour early and I'm still going to pay you for it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to know what motivates people. Managers typically don't know that. Now, I want to say something because I'm not going to let leaders off the hook, right? Because there's a lot of leaders out there that do not have a clue how to manage.
Yes.
And that is another important aspect to it, because if you don't have processes in place, if you don't have SOPs, standing operating procedures, if you don't have here's how we do things, here's how we know we're being successful, then no amount of leadership is going to be able to pull you out of those times or identify when things are going haywire, going wrong. Because you can be like, I don't understand why things are going bad. Everybody's happy. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's do. But if you don't have that management side of it to be able to look at it and go, oh, crap, you know, here's this, and this is what I have. Or your employees can take advantage of the lack of processes and structure, right? So if you don't have that, and I'll give an example from FIP when I first got there, you know, we kept getting backed up in this one particular part of the process for prepping, printing and prepping, and that was things getting cut down. So really quick, and I'm not going to explain this good, but I'm going to explain it to where other people will understand it. So you got a big ass piece of paper, and you print 8 things on that paper, and then you cut it down into a regular notebook size thing, right? But it's 8 different things. Everybody got that, right? Well, when it comes out on that big piece of paper, someone's got to cut it down, and there's this very complicated machine that you got to program, which I didn't know. I thought you just put it in there and lined it up, and they're like, yep, that shit looks good, and cut it. Like, you got to program it in, and then you run that through the program, and it cuts it down into the right size. Really cool once you see it work. But just know that it's not as easy as what the YouTube short videos make it seem. So when you see our cutting machine, like someone had to program that to do that, is my point. We kept getting backed up on that. And it's like you said earlier, well, he's got this job going, she's got this going, we're printing this over here, we're putting this stuff in, we're doing, and so it was like, you would have 5 or 6 or 10 jobs that were waiting to be cut. Well, I can't even fold them. I can't put them into an envelope. I can't ship them. I can't deliver them until this thing is done.
Yep.
And that, other than the printing, takes a lot of time to set up, to make sure it's right. Then you can only cut so many at a time. So it takes time, and we were getting backed up. And it wasn't that nobody didn't want to do it. It wasn't that we didn't have people that were capable of doing it. We just didn't have anything that said, here's when this is going to get done and when it's important. And so we sat down and talked, and we're like, hey, you know what? These guys come in 2 hours early at the beginning of the day, and like, let's utilize that time so that, anything, like, the priority is this. We're going to cut down anything that needs to be cut for those 2 hours. And then we rotated it amongst the, 3 people back there? It was like, well, it was two to three, right?
3,
Depending on, we have one guy that kind of goes back and forth. But we rotated that, and within a week, like, that was not, it hasn't been a problem. Well, I mean, there's a couple of times it's become a problem, but it's because we got off of the procedure.
Yep.
And as soon as we were like, hey, don't forget, tomorrow, cut, here's the priorities. And so leaders can have the best of intentions. They can take care of everything that needs to be taken care of, but if you don't have those procedures in place, now you can't hold people accountable. Here's one of your tips for your leaders, managers, owners, and stuff like that there. So we've had this discussion about holding people accountable and how you do that. Number one, you have to establish a procedure. You have to establish what it is I'm holding you accountable for. Number two, I have to train you on that. Whoever creates that has to train that person on, here is the procedure. Now, it doesn't have to be a long 8-hour class. It could be 5 minutes of whatever it is. But I establish it, then I train you on it. And then the last step is I have to follow up to make sure you're doing it. If you don't do that last part, doesn't matter what you create, doesn't matter what you train, you've got to follow up and make sure they're doing it. Now, here's always the question. Well, how do I hold them accountable? It's really simple. And this happens to me, this is in any situation, right? I ask 2 questions. Number one, did you understand? Yes, I understood. Then why didn't you comply? That's it. If they say, well, no, I really didn't understand. Okay, good. Let me retrain you. Maybe whatever procedure I put in place just didn't make sense. So when I'm doing that training, I'm like, okay, obviously this didn't make sense. How can we do it better? Because I still need this outcome. Now I'm back into the leadership mode. Now I'm getting that feedback from the employee or that worker saying, okay, if my way didn't make sense, tell me something that does make sense. Well, what if we did X, Y, and Z? Okay. Now I've got a new procedure. Now we're both trained on it. Now I'm going to hold you accountable to it.
Yep.
Now, if you're like, well, if it's a compliance issue, now I have, guess what? I have policies and procedures to deal with that. If someone is not compliant, I can counsel them, I can write them up, I can, whatever's in that policy is what I'm going to do. And it just creates that cycle. But it's always, you got to create the policy or the procedure. You have to train on it. Then you have to hold them accountable. Did you understand? Yes, I understood. Then why didn't you comply?
Yep.
They don't want to be asked more than once on anything why they didn't comply, because that becomes very uncomfortable.
Yeah, so for sure.
That's the big tip of the day for that part.
No, I definitely agree on that. And it's an easy way to kind of not have to, without having to try to raise your voice or anything like that. It's just a very simple question. For us, initially, that was the problem, though. We didn't have a lot of the processes established. And that was one of the biggest things we had to get established, which we got that now for the most part. We're still some things we can still improve upon and get
Oh,
more.
it's a constant, and that's the other thing. I'm glad you said that. It's never 100% right.
Yep.
I mean, our country's been around for 200 and coming up on 250 years or whatever it is.
Still, but
Right? And we still make laws all the time. So obviously it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously, we haven't got it figured out yet.
Yeah.
So, if you think that just because you put a policy in place, there's not going to be an improvement, an adjustment, get rid of it because it's no longer works, or it's no longer relevant. So it's a constant process.
well, and with that going along the side of leadership, my mentality and how I look at things is it's actually in my office. I've got a sign behind my desk. It's called the Mamba mentality. It's a constant quest to be in the best person or best version of yourself each and every day.
Yeah.
Which, in the word constant quest, is the key part of there. That you're always going to be improving. We're not perfect people, never going to be perfect people, but doesn't mean we can't still try to strive to be as close as possible to that. Same thing in business. We'll never be perfect in business, but we should still strive to be as close to perfect as we possibly can.
Yeah. It's the 1% better every day. The constant improving, the Mamba mentality. The one thing I will tell, any business owner, any manager, any person in a leadership position, I'm not going to say leader because, that's, you may be in a position but may not be a leader yet. Doesn't mean you can't get there.
Yeah.
But how, we like to say, the Mamba mentality, 1% better, but what does that actually look like in real life? Well, number one, it looks like getting coaching. Get coached. Find a mentor.
Holding yourself or someone else accountable.
Yeah, holding yourself accountable. There's so many YouTube videos out there that just, some of them are really short, some of them can be a lot longer, but just every day take in that extra knowledge. You're never going to know everything. Sales. I watch so many sales videos from all different people, and I take the pieces that are relevant to form my own opinion. Same thing with leadership and all those kind of things. You want to expand your knowledge base. So if you're a business owner, I don't care how successful you are. Get coaching. Find a mentor. Find someone else who's doing it. Reach out to Josh. Reach out to me. And get that coaching or watch those videos. Get training. And then don't stop there. Now you have to train your people.
Yep.
You got to teach your people. And these things don't have to take a long time. Just 5 minutes.
Constant education.
Yeah, constant education, improve. Ask them to train you on things within your own company. I've seen you do it. I've seen you talk to, help me understand, this or this with the whatever computer system or the flatbed in the back, or remind me how to do this thing, because you know pretty much everything about, a little bit about all the stuff in there. But then, I've seen you have those conversations to where you're asking questions and getting feedback. And I think that's so important as both a leader, a business owner, and a manager, to constantly ask questions, get feedback, and all those things.
Well, and a lot of times what happens is like the machine goes down or something like that, and I'm coming over there, I'm trying to help them because, sometimes I think the fact that I don't know everything about that machine helps me like figure out the issue and what needs to be done, because they're so used to just the routine that they're not thinking necessarily from just a logic, and I come from just logically speaking to, okay, so how would this normally work? What about that? Like little things. And then I'm trying to understand. I'm like, okay, have you tried this? I'm like, no, I haven't tried it. Sometimes, and it's that little thing that ends up being what it is. Like for instance, one of our manual stitchers just broke the other day, and they basically they were like, it's broke, can't do anything about it. And I was like, well, did we try this? Did we try that? Well, no. okay, can we try that? You know, and because they would want to be just a call in a tech right away, which means a lot more money and things like that to come fix it. And so I asked them, can you try that? They tried it, fixed, and it was good to go.
Most I can say is, did you unplug it and plug it back in? That's as far as my knowledge on any of this stuff.
Most of our machines, unfortunately, are not that simple, like a cell phone or something. But but
did you delete the cookies?
Yeah, exactly. But I think unless you got anything other,
I want to reiterate that leadership is a skill that anyone can learn. And don't try and do it on your own. Don't think you're going to be perfect at it either, because all of us make mistakes. You know, I probably learned as much or more from my bad leadership that I had than I did from the good, just because they show you exactly what not to do. Good leaders do things behind the scenes that you don't know. And so just, pay attention to what you see people around you doing and make that determination for yourself. But, I think that's, again, if y'all got questions, reach out to us. Both Josh and I are more than happy to have these one-on-one discussions, about those kind of things. So, that's all I got for this one.
All right. Well, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, like, share it. Put it out there. If you got any comments, put them out there. We'd love to interact with you. And until next time, let's grow together.
It's time to step up, yeah. It's grind time, no more letting up. No, running faster, further, no more running up. Yeah, giving my all, no more giving up. Listen to me, step. It's time to